Keeping employees happy, healthy, and uninjured is not a single person job. Briotix Health provides ISMPs, industrial sports medicine professionals, to help get that job done. Today on the Spotlight, we're joined by Tennille Grega, a team supervisor at Briotix Health who works with our ISMPs to oversee and enact injury prevention effectively in every workplace. Have you ever wondered what steps injury prevention teams are taking in the workplace to keep employees safe? Or what happens after an injury? All that and more on today's episode of the Briotix Health Spotlight. Tennille, thank you so much for joining us on the Spotlight today. I'd love to know a little bit more about your background in both how you joined Briotix Health, what you do, and also what's your journey in care been like? How did you get to this point in your life?
Yeah, Matthew, it's so good to see you again today. I'm happy to be here. As you said, my name's Tennille. I am one of the team supervisors here at Briotix Health. My background is actually in athletic training. I got my bachelor's in athletic training and then a master's in health and teaching education. And then I got my doctorate with my research in occupational health and industrial athletic training. So my journey with Briotix started about almost 6 years ago. I came in as an ISMP. I worked directly boots on the ground with the clients and the employees, really driving home the injury prevention program that we have here at Briotix Health. And then over the years, just evolved into a team supervisor on the team operations side of things.
Amazing. So you obviously, with that background, you've experienced working directly with providers and clients across a variety of sites. When you see an injury, occur in the workplace, what are the initial steps that any company can take to really improve their injury prevention strategies?
Yeah, for sure. I think, one of the first things really to do is have that ISMP on site to really drive home the importance of warming up, stretching, using proper body mechanics on the job. Having that person who's kind of that advocate for health and wellness really does make a big difference. In each site that really looks differently. So depending on what your worker is doing, what motions they're, doing within their job, how much they have to lift, push, pull. Each of those client sites and employees need something different. Sometimes it's more of that health and wellness and, just making sure they know what other benefits they have available to them from the company that they work for. And then other times it could look different for somebody else where they have that discomfort, whether it be, work related or something that happened outside of work that's just kind of giving them that discomfort at work. And then working with those people to help alleviate that discomfort.
Yeah. If or when an injury does occur, of course, we're trying to prevent those from happening, trying to reduce them as much as we can, but obviously, inevitably, something can or will happen. If or when that does occur, what does the process of treatment and resolution start with from that management side of equation at Briotix?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think here at Briotix, we do a lot of support on the back end for those ISMPs that are working directly with the employees. They have a lot of people that they can reach out to if they have any questions. But also, with that being said, we have a lot of knowledge that we can pass on to the provider who's working on site with those employees who have those discomforts. And if an initial injury does occur, we really rely on them and their backgrounds, their healthcare providers, they're well trained to be able to provide the best services for those clients that they can. On a management side of things, we really just try to touch base with those providers, making sure if they do need anything, we're right there for them, providing them with best practices, maybe some ergo recommendations, working through things with them that may be a specific challenge for, a particular type of discomfort, but ultimately really letting them be the healthcare provider who can really help that employee get through that discomfort.
Diving into that kind of the provider side, you see it from the management side often of here are the steps we're taking to support. What is the provider doing in the workplace when an injury occurs? In the moments after and the weeks after, what are those steps they're taking to either make sure it doesn't occur again or to, help the employee, make them feel more confident, either getting back to work, continuing work, or just start their recovery journey?
Yeah, there are a lot of facets to the program. A very small, actually, portion of it is doing that discomfort management. But really, what we want to look at beforehand is preventing them from having those injuries in the first place. Looking at their job sites, making sure that we're taking ergonomics into account, and really trying to make that workplace as safe as possible for them. But again, if they do get injured, we try to follow them through that process. And then after say they come back to work, or maybe they just are feeling better on the job, we try to continue that, right? So, giving them the tools that they need to then continue to feel good on the job, whether that be, using a warm up program, helping them understand that, this particular part of the body needs a little bit of extra love before you come in for your shift. Or, whether it be, we know that this was probably the cause, or part of the cause of your discomfort. So let's look into that and see if we can, change that up to take some of the pressure off of your body to decrease that discomfort going forward. Keeping in mind, we already know what happened to that, discomfort. So let's go ahead and see what we can do so that this doesn't happen again, not only for the employee who was, injured, but also for any other employee who may be working that same position on a different shift, or maybe, on a different day.
Yeah. So hitting on that same point, what do those next stages of improvement look like once, the immediate needs of the employee have been addressed? Outside of, just that one employee's case, what are those kind of actions that are being implemented across the workplace? Are teams meeting to discuss what happened often from the Briotix side? Are we, meeting with providers, trying to understand, jump in, get more information so we can make those next steps easier? Do our internal audits happening at the company themselves? Is that varying across client locations? What do you most often see?
Yeah, that for sure. I think that we work very well and collaborate well with typically the health and safety team at the client that we provide services for. So, a lot of times they're doing their own internal investigation to see how that injury may occurred, and our providers are a part of that. So they will go to those meetings, they will meet with the management on that side of things, and really try to give them their opinion on how things happen and what they actually perceived, and what they saw on the job for that particular specific injury. And a lot of times there's not only, the client side of things and they're looking into the injury, but we are also doing the same thing. So that way we can provide some best practices. Maybe, they want proper body mechanics for the job hung, on in the break room, or maybe they want that near the station so that, other employees can see, hey, this is the way that your neutral posture should be when you're holding this particular piece of equipment, or when you're, using this particular table, or when you're pushing this particular piece of, product. So
Yeah.
that way they can have that for the next time. So we do a lot of that type of stuff on the back end. I think, again, both client and, our company, Briotix, both do a little bit of an audit in that perspective. A little bit different depending on what you're doing, right? So on the client side, they want to see how many injuries they've had in the same type of maybe body part, or maybe department, or maybe from the same mechanism of injury. So are there any trends there that they're seeing that we can help them with? So that's a big part of what we do. And a lot of times we're the ones reporting back to them about seeing a specific trend, whether it be that body part or in that particular department. And what can we do about that in the future? And how can we help so that that trend kind of decreases and we're catching some of that stuff beforehand?
Yeah, a lot of the developments that I hear about, either looking at larger trends in ergonomics right now, are all about that foreknowledge and that analysis of what's going on. I see motion capture so often, which is really focusing on the where are those weird movements coming into the workplace. So I think that knowledge is power approach really is inherent to a lot of the success that we see with clients, of just here's what we provide, here's the great resources and the knowledge that we bring of here are the injury causes.
Yeah, and for sure. And, some employees, they talk to other people in their departments as well. And we didn't know that maybe somebody else was having that same shoulder discomfort before because they didn't say anything about it. But then once somebody did, we can actually talk to other people and they're having that same issue, which really brings some of the other stuff to the foreground that we can work on and hopefully prevent in the future.
Yeah. I feel like we've touched on this slightly, but what can employees or management do to stop that next injury from occurring in a similar way? Is it really all just focused on that knowledge of, hey, here's a issue that's present. What are ISMPs doing when they're speaking with, clients, management, employees to make sure that's not happening again?
I think number one, the most important thing that you can do is really talk to your ISMP. Tell them what's bothering you, explain what your discomfort is, because, like I mentioned earlier, if we don't know about it, we don't know if maybe other people are having that same sort of discomfort. So I think the first step there is really just being honest and communicating with the resources that you have there, on a daily basis or whenever, we provide services to your client. So and then same with management. So if they see somebody who may be struggling, whether that be, for whatever reason, we can go ahead and we can, observe them on the job. We can see if anything, may be occurring because of their particular position or body mechanics. And so communicating with the ISMP on site and getting them to understand what you're feeling on a daily basis is really step number one. Other than that, really just following up. We say it all of the time, but stretching and warm up is so important, right? I've had so many employees come to me and say, I started stretching and that actually really helped me. And it always makes me laugh because, we really do try to emphasize the importance of stretching. And when people really build that into their daily practice, it makes such a big difference. So, one of the things that we like to do is just make sure they know the basics of, what they need to do to stay healthy on the job. And from there are, a lot of other facets, like I said, of what we do. When you start at the bottom of the pyramid, there's only, room to grow up and, make yourself feel better.
Absolutely. Tennille, thank you so much for hopping on, joining us today. Telling us a little bit more
Absolutely.
about, the value of industrial sports medicine professionals in the workplace and what an injury prevention company can help provide. Uh, Folks, if you're looking to learn a little bit more about what Briotix Health does, feel free to check out our website, briotix.com, or contact me or Tennille. You might get a chance to talk to one of us if you work with Briotix Health injury prevention in the future. Tennille, thank you so much for joining us on the spotlight today. It was a pleasure talking with you as always.
Thank you, Matthew. Always a pleasure talking to you as well. I love what I do here at Briotix Health. We love to support those clients and those ISMPs. And the last thing I have to say, of course, is Happy National Athletic Training Month.
Happy National Athletic Training Month. Doo-doo-doo.